Trygve Olson, senior advisor to the Lincoln Project, a former Republican like myself, is here at the table. And boy, howdy, we might as well just end the show for the entire week now, because this is one of the guests I had on the list. I said, if only we could get Rick Smith. And here we got to meet him finally in person this morning. I know, Trygve, you've been on the show before. Rick Smith has the wonderful Rick Smith Show. You can hear it every evening right here on the Civic Media Radio Network from 10 until 11, Monday through Friday in the evening. And he also has the 5 to 6 p.m. TV show on free speech. Rick Smith, thanks for being with us here. Welcome.
Todd, thanks for taking time for me.
Oh, thank you for taking time for us. I've been a fan of the show for a long time, and in particular, a couple of years ago for the midterm elections, you took your show on the road, and you spent a lot of time in Wisconsin, and that's when I said, by golly, this guy gets it. Because he showed up in places, you're like at Stevens Point, talking to Mayor Wiesa. You were in industrial towns. You were in places where jobs are not there anymore, and you talked to real people. Tell us why you did that tour and what you learned.
The reality is, I grew up in Cleveland, and as a kid, I watched the city deindustrialize. And what I watched were friends, neighbors, their family lose those jobs. And the transformation from a solid middle-class existence to poverty was very difficult for them. So as you see these jobs go away, you see these opportunities go away, what you see, our lives get much worse. So what we decided in 2022 was we wanted to go to places that used to be. You know, like Toledo, Ohio used to be the glass capital of the world. Akron used to be the rubber capital. Eau Claire, they used to be a rubber producer. We went to those places that used to be, and we're talking about how do we make these places that are going to be. And it's the policies that Biden was pushing at the time to reshore manufacturing, to invest in our infrastructure. That was the point. We need to do more of this, and not on a partisan basis. We need to rebuild our country and make this country a place worth handing off to our children. Sadly, I don't think it is yet, but I'm thrilled that we're on the path to getting there.
We've done this show a couple of times, more than that now, from Eau Claire, and we had B.J. Hollers, the producer of this great documentary, when rubber hit the road, about the closure of the Uniroyal plant up there and what that meant to that community. And what it certainly was sad in many ways, but being there at that world premiere of this movie, what I also took away was the hopefulness of working folks all across our state of Wisconsin, across this country, because when looking in the eye of adversity, they said we're going to do something good, and they've rebuilt their entire downtown. To me, working folks just have this spirit that they're not going to quit.
No, absolutely. But you have to give them the opportunity. You got to give them the tools. Yeah. You've got to have the policy initiatives. Bad policy got us here. We opened up our borders to trade. We had really lopsided trade deals. We allowed foreign corporations to run away looking for cheap, exploitable labor and then bring those profits back. We allowed this stuff to happen through bad policy. What Biden has done has moved us in a way that is going to, hopefully down the road, move us away from that stuff. I think he has been the transformational president to move away from a lot of the neoliberal trade policies of the past, the neoliberal tax policies, and hopefully moving us back to an ideal like my grandparents fought for.
Well, let's talk for a second about Joe Biden. Tonight's kind of his night. He's going to be speaking tonight from the dais, and listening to your show. And a lot of times I do it in my truck, just driving late at night. And one of the cool things I thought, you have people call in. There are certainly more from the far left side. So I'm not really happy with Biden. And you've been a constant defender, saying, look, he doesn't always ring my bells either, but he's trying more than a lot of other people. And I love the fact that you get that.
He wasn't my first choice.
Yeah,
quite frankly. He wasn't my second choice. Was my third choice. He was my fourth choice, but he was the best choice. He was the guy for the moment that calmed some of the crazy down. I mean, we went through 4 years of chaos. Here was a guy who didn't get involved in any of that. He said, look, go ahead, I got work to do. And as I've been called, I call him Jelly Bucket Joe. This is a guy who just shows up every day. He's got his jelly bucket, going to go to work. And he has done what I've been calling for years. Spending money to rebuild our roads and bridges, investing in new technologies, reshoring manufacturing, move in those directions, and the secret sauce of my grandparents' generation, promote organized labor. Use the National Labor Relations Act the way it was meant to, where government encourages people to collectively bargain so that you can solve problems at the workplace, where you don't need laws for everything. You can come to an agreement at a bargaining table. That's something we used to do. And also, by the way, if companies are doing really, really well, those workers get to share in those profits. Imagine that. Imagine a world where, Companies making $1 billion profit, workers make a little bit more.
Let's talk about unions for a second. I come from on one side of the family farmers, the other side of the family educators and teachers. My grandmother, grew up on a farm where my great grandfather didn't think girls should get beyond 8th grade education. She ended up being the first woman to be a dean of university in the state of Wisconsin. And my entire other family are teachers. We've seen in Wisconsin, because of Scott Walker's Act 10, teachers, people like Morris Andrews, the late great leader of the teachers union in Wisconsin, that got educators to, like, you can get good health care, you can get a good paying job that sustained a family. And now Act 10, my sister teaches in the Eau Claire School District and is a type 1 diabetic, and she and her husband both have thousands of dollars in deductible now because the school district up there, which is a good district, but the rights of teachers have been, a lot of it just taken away.
No, look, back in 2011 when we were sleeping on the floor of your Capitol, when all this was going on, and we were one of the first programs in the country to broadcast out of there, we were saying this is what's going to get you. It's going to get you poverty wages and poverty situations for your public sector workers. This is all about destroying working conditions. It's all about destroying what Wisconsin had always been, the forward state, the state that brought us workers' compensation and unemployment, and a lot of those they were the firsts for. And now, Wisconsin at that point, were the ones who were taking us backwards. The hope is now you get some sanity in your state, and once again, find that forward bottom.
I just saw Trygve. I'm not sure if you saw this. There was a lot of modeling, and I know polls and modeling are as good as that and a cup of coffee. But the point is, some people are now modeling, saying that Wisconsin's legislature, the assembly, it's a 50-50 toss-up right now with these new maps, and we might actually see a chance for Democrats to win. Are you seeing that or not really? Not really.
Democrats are going to do a lot better than they did. Like, they still, even if they're going to have to get to like 52% of the statewide vote to have a real shot, which says they're not completely balanced. But some of that, and it isn't what Scott Walker and the Republicans say. The advantage that Republicans have is the Democrat vote is more packed, but it used to be they needed 58% to get, right, which is never going to happen. So, but yeah, they could, in theory.
And we're talking with Rick Smith here on the Rick Smith Show. You can hear it every evening, 10 until 11 on the Civic Media Radio Network, and Trygve Olson on the Lincoln Project. Guys, I want to play a cut, Mr. Zommers, this cut of Trump over the weekend talking about a tariff. A tariff, he said, is a tax on a foreign country. I want to play the clip and come back and get these guys' opinion on it. Here's Trump from over the weekend.
A tariff is a tax on a foreign country. That's the way it is, whether you like it or not. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's a tax on us. No. It's a tax on a foreign country. It's a tax on a country that's ripping us off and stealing our jobs. And it's a tax that doesn't affect our country. And you could see hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs on other countries also. I took it.
Rick Smith, as the former Wisconsin basketball coach, Bo Ryan, who I know very well, liked to say, I might have been born on a weekend, but it wasn't last weekend. Set people straight on this.
No, he clearly doesn't know what a tariff is. But to be honest with you, I'm not an anti-tariff guy. I think you do need to have barriers that encourage competition, and we cannot compete head to head with China, given the wage, the poverty, all of that stuff. So I do believe we have to have a way to balance that, and I think tariffs on strategic goods, things that we could produce here, is a smart idea. I think he's just bonkers on this. We're going to have 100% across the board.
Well, that's the point. I mean, 100% tariff. People who are going to pay that are in Eau Claire and Milwaukee and Madison, Richland Center, and Green Bay at the end of the day.
Right. But for me, the reality is we used to make things here.
Yeah.
We used to be a country that was self-sufficient. And I'm a firm believer in domestic production for domestic consumption. The things that we need, we should be able to consume. And I think the pandemic really highlighted the fact that we're dependent on the rest of the world for a lot of our stuff. So if there is a breakdown overseas, if there is a log jam with the ports,
China invades Taiwan.
Yeah,
Imagine what that would do.
To me, manufacturing is a national security issue, always has been.
100%.
And okay, so I may have to pay an extra $1 for a T-shirt or an extra 50 cents for something. I'm willing to do that because we were sold this idea of free trade, that I'm going to be able to go to the store and there will be an American product there and there'll be a cheap piece of crap from China there, and I'll be able to choose. I may pay more for the American product, but I can have the choice. Well, the sad reality is you go into stores now, there's no American product left.
Yeah, right.
Those companies have been gobbled up because, understand, we're the reserve currency of the world. When we buy something from China, those dollars have to come back here. And that what they use it for? They bought us. We didn't lose millions of jobs. We know exactly where they are. They're in China. Again, I go back to bad policy. Now, do I trust that Trump is going to have the idea of actually doing the right thing? No.
Well, where did he manufacture his own stupid ties?
Or those,
that's
those goofy tennis shoes.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, his steaks. I don't know where he bought the meat, but I wouldn't. I don't even know what kind of meat it was. I have a question for you, Rick. Though, talk about, and this is a place where I think guys like you and I, right? Like I come from the right of center, and you obviously come from sort of the other side of the spectrum. But when it comes to returning manufacturing, it just makes common sense. And,
without question.
And to some degree, and Biden has been great on that. I was talking to somebody about all that Biden and Harris have been doing about slowly getting the semiconductors and critical pieces of technology back here and creating opportunity to manufacture in the state. Not like Scott Walker did it, where it was a complete boondoggle and basically the state got ripped off to the tune of, what was it, $1 billion? Yeah. But like actually getting these American companies to build American manufacturing facilities, and in some cases within the NAFTA zone. So they've got some of the work that Americans would be low wage work being done in Mexico and then bringing it here, and it's the more advanced. I just think to do that, though, successfully requires foresight in terms of, technical
Industrial
education.
policy.
Yes.
An idea, a
Education.
thought, not
Right.
this invisible hand nonsense.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the invisible hand's been giving us the invisible finger for a very long time.
Correct. Well, or in Scott Walker's case, literally not even the invisible finger. But Scott, as I said, you'll love. We're going to have to send him my quote. Scott Walker is not a bright man.
No.
But he does know what love is.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
They have a little tip for tack going.
No, that's good. No, but here's the thing. I read
He wrecked the state.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
got to
Yes.
the point.
He destroyed your state.
Wisconsin had an amazing tradition of certain things, public education being one of them, the Wisconsin idea, conservation being things that bipartisan people work together. My boss, Tommy Thompson, we work together. We may not have always agreed. We work with Democrats from Milwaukee on education. We worked with, Gaylord Nelson, Bill Proxmire on conservation. Scott Walker wrecked all of that. And the truth of the matter is, I don't know that I've ever said this to you when I've been on your show, but I've known Scott Walker since high school at Badger Boy State. He was running for governor of the state then. And what infuriates me about it, which is why I rip on Scott Walker all the time on this show, is that he did that because he was all about running for president and he wanted something and did it on the back of public servants so that he could be on Fox News.
I'm going to be a lot
and
more.
run for president.
You're a lot
He's
more generous.
pathetic.
You're a lot
He's
more generous.
pathetic.
At least he was going to get something out of it. I thought it was just for the money.
No, he's wanted to be president. So when we were at Badger Boy State, we were all 16. It's Legion State. We were all trying to get the college girls out behind the dorm.
Gotcha.
Not very successfully.
Yeah.
Scott Walker was running for president of the United States then. Like literally, he is that guy.
Yeah. No, I know.
He is.
I know
He
some
is
of those.
Bill. He
Sure.
is the. He is no different than Bill Clinton.
You got time? One more segment?
Sure.
6 minutes. All
I'm
right.
here for
All right. You're fantastic. We're gonna come
He's
back.
done this before.
I know he has.
think.
Rick Smith of the Rick Smith Show coming on back. Also, Mr. Trygve Olson. Your phone calls as well. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. We're live on location, the Democratic National Convention, the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. We are live on location here from Media Row in the United Center for the Democratic National Convention. Talking to, of course, Rick Smith from the Rick Smith Show. You can hear it every evening across the network from 10 until 11. You can also see him on Free Speech TV from 5 until 6. Trygve Olson from the Lincoln Project also joining me at the table. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842 if you have a question for Rick or Trygve. Mr. Zommers, is L.A. Tom still on the line, or did he
sure
drop
is.
off? All right, very good. Let's go out to Los Angeles, California. And L.A. Tom, what do you got?
Well, first I'm going to say, when are we going to learn anything Trump says never really happens? So that I do want to say about him actually doing anything that's good for the United States and not billionaire donors. I am a joyful democracy warrior. I wanted to say to Trygve, I think Rick Wilson should be the Frank Luntz for the Democratic Party because he's brilliant. I don't believe in Project 2025. I wanted to ask, do you think that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the Democratic Convention will talk a little bit more about honestly just the three branches of government and how we have to win the Senate and the House in order to get any of their policies through? Because I don't see that yet. And I really would like to see a little bit more of that because I don't think most American people really understand democracy or the three branches of government, actually.
Sure. Thanks.
And one last thing,
Go ahead.
Trygve, I just want to say, this is the way I message it because I am pro-life. I'm against war. I'm against pretty much anything that can destroy life. But I put the framing as a woman's right to choose versus the government's right to choose. And I think women every day choose to have children. So I would really love for us to get out of this whole thing where it's kind of like pro-abortion thing or pro-life. We know what the opposite of pro-life is. It's pro-death. We have to have two nouns. It's got to either be a woman's right to choose or pro someone else's right to choose. And that in this state would be government.
Thanks, L.A. Tom. Really appreciate it.
It's a good comment because I'm not pro or anti-abortion. Since you brought that up, I'm pro-safety.
Yeah.
I've got two daughters. I don't want them to have to make a decision like their grandmother's generation had to. I wouldn't be thrilled if they had abortions, but I would be thrilled if they came home alive. So for me, that's the point. I think we need to be talking about things in a much different. I think this is what L.A. Tom was getting to. We need to be talking about things in a different frame. Yeah. These binary choices. I think pro-safety can bring someone who is quote unquote pro-life and someone who is pro-abortion into a middle ground, I think.
Yeah. But what about this? Trygve and I always talk about it. He worked at the national level for Republicans' narrative. Democrats, seem to be good on policy, and Republicans are usually better at narrative. I think that Kamala Harris and this team in 30 days have just grabbed this by the short hairs, and they've got it.
Yeah.
Because this narrative of freedom, this narrative of bringing people together, joyfulness. Somebody on Twitter, I credit him, I can't remember who, said it feels like we're walking away from an abusive relationship. I mean, really?
No, Trygve's exactly right. Because I've been saying for a very long time, Democrats in a street fight would offer to hold your coat.
Exactly.
This group right now, I think they would grab your coat, throw it on the ground, and then wipe you up with it. Because go back to 2016. What was the frame then?
I think they'd throw it over your head and just pound the
Okay, yeah.
Crap.
What was the frame back in 2016? When they go low, we
go high.
Yeah, and I'm going, no. I played football. When they go after my knees, when they go low, I ram their head to the ground, and stomp them in the dirt.
You want to know a funny story about that? So in 2020, Michelle Obama repeated that line, and Lincoln Project tweeted out, "That's okay. You can stay high because we'll knee him in the groin." We used a different term. And we got it back channeled to us that she wasn't very happy about our tweet because it kind of made
because it's the wrong frame. It's the wrong frame.
Right.
It's telling
it
you
was
you're
a good frame for us.
Yeah, it was
that's
great for you.
exactly what we were doing.
You got the
That's
attention.
what you got to do.
Absolutely.
Seriously, it's what.
But
you
this
gotta
is
do.
where Tim Walz, the addition of Tim Walz,
Absolutely.
the decision. Any presidential candidate, you look at that first decision. I look at Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Who was the guy that she picked? What was his name?
Yeah, Tim Kaine.
Okay, that's it. There you go. Not really exciting. Not somebody you remember.
No.
This guy was made the petri dish for working class people.
Right.
So that first decision of hers was, I'm going to pull somebody in who might grab your coat and put it over your head and pummel you with it.
Well, this is the thing. This is one of the things that's been so fascinating to me as a Republican who's worked at senior levels in Republican politics, now being in and around Democrats. You think Dick Cheney's ever been in a fist fight? You think
shotgun.
You think Tim Kaine's ever been in a fist fight?
No.
Right? There's the difference. There is an element. There is something important about that, and it sounds sort of weird, but the reality is one of the first things you learn. I grew up playing ice hockey, so I was in a few. Fighting is never fun, even if you're going to win the fight.
Sometimes you
right?
gotta do
but
it.
Sometimes you got to do it.
No, it's like I told my
Sometimes
kids.
you have to.
Like I told my kids, how you deal with a bully. You got to take them out.
100%. And Donald Trump, that's what.
And Donald Trump's a bully.
100%.
And that's where I think the difference between what Kamala Harris is going to do in debates as opposed to what Hillary did. Hillary did the Mother May I stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
She was prim. She was proper. She didn't want to, as opposed to when he walked behind her, she should right between the eyes.
She made the same mistake. She made the same mistake that little Marco and Ted Cruz and all the rest of them did. And the truth of the matter is,
You call my wife ugly?
Exactly.
We're rolling in the dirt.
But I had a conversation one time. Honestly, this is the thing. I had a conversation with somebody who knows President George W. Bush quite well, and I said to him, "What if Donald Trump would have said stuff like that about Laura?" Person said he'd gone right, literally over there on the debate stage and put a cowboy boot where the sun doesn't shine.
And look, I may get a butt whipping out of it,
Right.
But you got to do that.
Yeah.
100%.
It's about respect.
Absolutely.
And clearly nobody holds him to respect.
Well, except she's been hitting him right in the jaw, and look at how he's responding.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't know what to do.
Yep.
1 minute left. I want to get your take on this, Rick Smith. This narrative of who's fighting for you, and I love this because we're gonna play more cuts over the weekend of Trump, and then you hear what Walz and Harris are saying. For working people across this state of Wisconsin, across the country, it feels like and sounds like it's Harris and Walz who are going to be fighting for us.
Without question. They're going to pick up the mantle that Joe Biden has created. And they're going to move this further down the road. You see that with all the labor union folks here. They're excited about the future of better wages, hours, conditions, and a society that we want to hand off to our children with good infrastructure, with good paying jobs. Manufacturing stuff again. Can you imagine that?
Right? Imagine that. Rick Smith, thank you so very much for your generosity of time and for coming on. You can hear his fine program, The Rick Smith Show, every evening from 10 until 11, Monday through Friday across the Civic Media Radio Network, and to watch him from 5 until 6 on Free Speech TV. Rick, thank you so very much.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it. Good to see you, Trygve.
Our pleasure.